Hello, my kin. My name is Kin Ping, but you can call me Kin. And today I'm here with another Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign. And as you guys might notice, there's something a little bit different here. With the help of mods, which obviously I'll leave a link to in the description so you guys can get them for yourself, I've decided to play a campaign as Tor Elazor. Elazor? I think it's Elazor. Tor Elazor. I've decided to play a campaign as them. And if you don't know who this faction is, then I don't blame you. So basically, I installed a mod which allows me to play any faction anywhere in the map, even if it's a minor faction, just I can play anything. So I decided to play these guys. These guys live on the Elven Colonies. And for those of you who don't know what the Elven Colonies is, it is three settlements which together are one province that are way away from everywhere else, and that you'll basically never encounter in a campaign if you don't purposely go there. It's just below where Kugath starts and to the right of the Southern Chaos Wastes. So I have decided to do this campaign here because I want to do a cool challenge where we spend 100 turns sitting on these three islands just minding our own business as the world progresses and does its thing. And then we go in and have a look at the world and basically play a proper campaign. So, there aren't really rules for this campaign. It's basically just I have to stay in my own territory, in my own sea region for 100 turns before I can decide to do anything else. That's the bottom line. So obviously turns are going really fast, and I have my starting army and I own all three settlements. So I start with a province, which is awesome. And basically these first 100 turns, which there's about 3 hours of footage of, so I'm going to have to cut it down and everything, is pretty much just building settlements and stuff and occasionally moving my guys around so they don't get lazy or anything. I had this idea for a campaign because I thought it'd be quite fun, and it'd be interesting to see how the Warhammer world works on its own when everyone's left to do their own thing, who becomes really powerful, who gets annihilated. I just thought it'd be very interesting. We still have the main mechanics of the High Elves, but as you can see, I literally can't open diplomacy because I don't know a single other faction, like none at all. And I cannot do intrigue at the court because, well, first off, I've got no influence. Second off, I got no other faction I can do it against. However, the rights still work, technology still works, and obviously I can upgrade my buildings. After upgrading my main settlement around turn 5, I wondered if I should get a decent army. I wasn't too sure if I wanted to do that. I mean, obviously it just impact my income, but I also had minus public order, so I was thinking maybe it would be wise to get some more troops, even though they were really shitty ones. I also thought that a good source of experience, even more so than actual like money, would be the little landmarks in the sea. I can't remember what they're called in the actual game, but the sea encounters basically. I could farm those as much as I wanted. However, I did not realize that there was one right over there. I can't even remember what turn I actually realized that there was one right there just sitting for me waiting. It took me ages to realize that, so yeah, I'm sorry about that. There was a good chunk of turns before I even did one singular fight. Also, there's one mod I really want to highlight here. Like, I truly think it's probably the best Warhammer 3 mod. It's called Dynamic Settlements. And basically what it does, I mean, you don't actually see it much in this campaign, because obviously I'm not taking settlements. But what it does is it means that when you take a settlement, that settlement changes to look like a settlement that your faction controls. So you're no longer taking over dwarven strongholds as elves and living in dwarven strongholds. Like, because say I'm an elf faction, if I went and took a vampire count place or a tomb king place, instead of it being a tomb king place, the settlement would disappear and then it would reappear as an elven settlement. And I just think that's awesome. It makes the world feel a little bit more alive, you know? And obviously this is with all other factions as well. So when I go over to the mainland, on turn 100 around about, I'll start seeing settlements that changed because their owners have changed, you know? And so I think that's really cool, really interesting, and makes it a little bit cooler. Also, another mod is the extra trees. More trees, lots of extra trees, which I think is really cool as well. It makes the world feel a little bit more alive and less dead and lived in, I guess, if you know what I mean. Hard to explain, but those are two mods I really wanted to highlight here. Anyway, let's get back to the actual campaign. So, on the start of turn 10, I got my first follower, and it was a Herald of Mathland. And I figured that this follower was actually really good. Minus 10 casualties suffered from all storm attrition. Perfect, suited me well. I would soon realize, however, that I would get a lot of Herald of Mathlands. Too many to count, actually. But then again, it was also a really good source of money. You can sell followers for 100 gold, which is really good. Also, I have this right called the Invocation of Vol, which means, it gives me lots of stuff, but I didn't really think that mattered at this point in time. Basically, what it did, it gave me a dilemma for a powerful magical item, which I thought would be very good, so I could buff up basically my equivalent of a legendary lord, Amon, here. I could give him, hopefully, by doing that right, I could give him lots of special equipment and stuff, so he was prepared for when we go to the mainland. So during turn 12, after upgrading a lot of my buildings, my buildings were progressing quite fast actually. I don't know why, I was just getting growth a lot quicker and everything. But I decided I wanted to get a noble. But I forgot that recruiting heroes and lords with the high elves relies on influence to get good ones. So I had no influence basically, and I wasn't sure how to get influence because I wasn't really I wasn't fighting anything. So I wasn't exactly sure how to do that because I wanted to get heroes. But I saw that there was a right which I could get influence from. However, my leader had to be rank 5 to achieve that. And I also popped the Invocation of Vol, which was giving me my first powerful equipment. And I was looking around and I figured that the Helm of Cain looked really nice. And that just made Amon just a bit more of a tank. Because I figured that when I went to the mainland, Amon would be going up against lots of really powerful lords, so giving him the Helm of Cain would be smart, make him unbreakable, make him induce fear, give him some extra stats. It'd just make him a little bit stronger so he could try and hold his own against these lords that would be at least level 20. During turn 17, I started building my first tier 3 buildings. I decided to get the Shrine of Zurian, which was minus corruption, but most importantly, unlocked technologies, which was really good. And of course, I upgraded my docks. I had a lot of money by this stage. Even 17 turns in, I was rolling in money, which I just assumed was a bonus because I started with a province and I didn't need to fight anyone, so I didn't need a military. So that was awesome. Building my settlements was so fast, and I had just had unlimited money for like the whole campaign. It was only on turn 24 did I actually spot that. So yeah, it wasn't as late on as I thought it was, but it was turn 24 where I spotted that sea encounter in the middle of the ocean just waiting for me. So then, it was then that I decided to make a decent army. I didn't have the option of many troops, however, but I figured Lothern Sea Guard were better than just getting spearmen or archers. I also actually got a really cool follower called the Advisor to the King, which I couldn't actually use, but I figured if some point down the line I confederated one of the major high elf leaders, I could use that. So I decided to keep hold of it because, you know, there was no point selling it. It was a good follower, I just didn't have someone to use it. And then it was on turn 27 which I finally went to the sea encounter. I had a decent army, I thought. It was an okay army for the state I was in currently, so I decided to sail to the wreck, and auto-resolving it would have made me lose one of my spearmen units, which I kind of didn't want. I wanted to, you know, keep as many guys alive as I could. So I thought about fighting it. The army was pretty average. This was my first fight, so I decided to fight it. I knew my troops needed the experience. I wanted to keep all the units alive as well, because if I was going to have any chance fighting these bigger armies, I'd have to rely on the experience of my troops, not the quality of them, because obviously the enemy's troops would be really experienced, and I had to have mine be just as experienced, basically. So the battle was pretty cool. I took the time to look at my guys. I actually really like the color scheme of this faction. I think the white and like grey kind of work well together. Usually I'm not a big fan of faction colors, but I like this one. And also, rookie mistake, Amon deployed way behind his army, which was a major mistake on my half. 3 minutes, 4 minutes into it, I really started to freak out a little bit. I was losing a lot more troops than I thought I would, and my Lothern Sea Guard units were not looking that good. Amon was losing in combat, but he wasn't going to die. But yeah, things just, they hadn't gone to plan. I was pretty confident I wasn't going to lose a unit, though. And then, it was a Pyrrhic victory, and I was okay with that. I didn't lose a unit. I felt like I got good experience for all my units as well. And it was a pretty good first fight. My first fight of this campaign on turn 27. How crazy is that? And Amon got some decent experience from it, and I got some good money as well. I decided to ransom the captors as well, because the influence was obviously that I really wanted influence. And look, the treasure down below, 5,000 gold and 1,500 experience for Amon. He was already on level 5 and I was really happy. Now it was basically, what was I going to upgrade? I figured that the only smart thing to do was upgrade through the blue line. I decided to put them all into bondage service to decrease the recruitment cost, which some people might not like, but I thought it was a good idea. I still do. The recruiting was just smarter for me, because I was going to be changing out units a lot as I got better settlements and everything. On turn 35, I finally upgraded my main settlement to tier 4. Both the Tower of the Stars and Tor Elzor were already on tier 3, which was the max that minor settlements can get. So I was really happy with that. Obviously, I've said it before, my buildings were progressing fine. And I was looking at recruiting a noble now that I had 28 influence, which I thought was very good. The reason I was at 28 was because I popped a right. That right I had explained earlier that gave me influence, because obviously Amon had reached level 5, so I could do that right. And then awesomeness hit when at the start of turn 41, I got a mage. I was really relieved that I'd been given this mage and I didn't have to actually recruit it myself, but I got a mage of metal, which I thought was really good. I was really happy with that. They had a pretty good trait as well, a pretty good starting trait, primed, which I really liked. Obviously, there wasn't really much I could use her for at the moment. By this time, I had 43,000 gold, and I was spending that on all the buildings I wanted. I was getting to the point where I could start recruiting good units, and I could start unlocking the good technologies, and I was slowly progressing, so eventually I would have a decent army to protect myself if I got attacked. As you can see, I put a garrison building on Tor Elzor, which in hindsight was not a good idea. There was no way I was going to be attacked. I was too far away, really, but I was constantly worried about those Southern Chaos Wastes. So that was a little bit of a fault on my side, putting the garrison settlement, the garrison building there, but it didn't really affect much. If I'd built an income building there, it would only been giving me like an extra 100 or 200 gold per turn, which wasn't necessary at all. And then I got a very strange message. The Bray Herds had come. Warherd of the One Eye had arrived somewhere. And I was really confused, because usually you only get those when they arrive like nearby. So I was really confused about that, because Krazak One Eye usually starts way up in Middenheim, around there, and he was really annoying towards the Empire. So that got me really confused. I wasn't sure where they'd popped up. So that kind of, at that point, that kind of strengthened my idea that I needed this garrison building in my settlement, because maybe they were down in the southern wastes, maybe they were somewhere else. I didn't really know. I also decided to pop the Invocation of Ball again to get myself another awesome item. I eventually decided to get the Amulet of Foresight, which I thought was okay. Ambush success chance and physical and missile resistance was pretty solid. Once again, just making Ammon a bit of a tank. That was the only plan I really had at the moment. I realized something goofy turn 43. I could walk right through this mountain. I'm not sure if that's one of the mods' fault or if it's just oversight by CA. You know, not making it like blocking terrain. But I could just walk through the mountain, so that was cool. Basically, I was really bored at this point, so I decided that it was just the elves' way of, you know, going through their forest. They had secret tunnels because they'd been here so long, and yeah, I was making up stories to entertain myself. And the next turn, I decided I had enough influence now. I had 48 influence, which I thought was pretty good. So I decided to recruit a noble. And all the nobles were pretty good stats. I forgot how good some high elf heroes were when you spent the influence to actually get them. So I decided to get Thandor. And the reason for this was he had good diplomatic stuff with the other high elves, which I thought was very good, and eventually maybe could lead to confederation, like so I could use that follower I got. And he was also just pretty strong, had some good buffs. And then I started recruiting some awesome units. I could recruit Frostheart Phoenix. I actually not sure, still now, I'm not sure what's the difference between the two Phoenix. I didn't really think about it too much. But I recruited 2 Frostheart Phoenix and some White Lions. Just, you know, to make my army look a bit more intimidating. And finally, by turn 50, I managed to get some Sisters of Avalon, which was great, and I unlocked Handmaidens, which was also really good. I still had some influence from having popped another one of those rights and everything, so I could always recruit a Handmaiden when I wanted. I figured it would be nice to get a Handmaiden, a Noble, and a Mage in one army. I just needed a Lawmaster now. I recruited Gendelfa, which was a Handmaiden, and my army was looking really nice. I was really proud with how it progressed, even though it was turn 50. I didn't really have much to show for it, but I figured my army was looking pretty nice. I eventually decided to get rid of some of my Lothian Sea Guards so I could have even more Sisters of Avalon, because I figured having Sisters of Avalon would be way better than Lothian Sea Guard, because the Sisters of Avalon are probably one of my most favourite units, even though I'm not actually a big High Elf player. Like, this is probably the biggest High Elf campaign I've ever played. So, yeah, I'm not big on High Elf, but I really do love the Sisters of Avalon. And then on turn 63, I decided to actually start building a second army. I wasn't exactly sure why, but I figured it was a good idea as any, really, because if I summoned them, well, if I recruited them now, they'd start getting experience, and sitting around in settlements was like the only way I was earning experience for my people. So I decided to recruit Latania, because she gave extra missile strength to archers and stuff, and that just obviously fit High Elves perfectly. So I had her. She was on rank 3 when I recruited her, which I thought was pretty good. Obviously, I put those skill points into the blue line because that, like I said with Ammon, that's like the only line I'm actually using. And then I decided to put some Sisters of Avalon into her army because obviously they worked perfect with her little extra ability. And then turn 71, which was, there was a big chunk of time that nothing happened really. But however, in turn 71, I got some dragons, and I was pretty proud of getting some dragons. I actually never got dragons in a High Elf campaign before, which isn't surprising because I haven't played many. But I recruited 2 dragons. I wasn't really sure what the difference was, and I just liked the look of the those dragons there, the moon dragons. And when I actually recruited the dragons, I realized my income was put down a lot. I was on 777 income, which was a bit of a bummer actually, but I figured it was a decent payoff. You know, I'd almost built every single building I could. I was getting to the point where this whole province was going to be maxed out and I was going to have one uber army. So there wasn't really a repercussion for having low income at the moment. I also decided to do the invocation of Ball again because, you know, give myself another cool item. And I decided to get the Ring of Wlecome, which just gave me a lot of extra income bonuses, which I thought was okay. Obviously, I wasn't going to be fighting anything for a while, but when I did start fighting stuff on turn 100, I would be able to get more money out of that, because obviously I only had 3 settlements, so I wanted as much money as I could possibly get from battles. And then the craziest thing happened, like really, really crazy. On turn 83, you're not going to believe what happened, guys, but I saw someone. Someone had made their way into our territory. You're not going to believe this.
Lethal grace given form.
Lord Croak had just casually sailed his way to Tor Elazor, and I have no idea why he was coming around here, what he was doing, or anything. Obviously, he was from that Lizardman faction, which I've forgotten the name of. I'm really sorry, but I had no idea what was going on. He just appeared out of nowhere, which I guess was kind of cool. Obviously, he wasn't much of a threat, and I had to move Latania, so I actually encountered them. Yeah, this was the first faction we encountered on turn 83, and led by Tic Tac Toe. And they had a pretty decent chunk of the, I'm not sure what it's called, the Southern Lands, maybe? I haven't really played around that side of the map, but they had a good chunk of land. They were obviously doing pretty well for themselves. They were strength rank 9, which was really good. I could be friends with them. I had a lot of influence. I could do some intrigue at the court and everything would be fine. So they weren't a threat at all. It just took me completely off guard, and I was hoping no one else would find me. Because though I was totally ready to go into the new world, I didn't really want to encounter anyone else before turn 100. This Lord Croak, I guess, was just Giga Chad, and he managed to find me before I found him. But I thought that was really cool, seeing Lord Croak as a little teaser to the world that we were about to see. So Lord Croak stuck around for a couple of turns, and then I decided to do some intrigue at the court. I had the influence, and improving my relations with them would only be beneficial, really. So I increased relations, and that gave me plus 20, which I thought was, you know, decent, just keep them happy. And then sadly, I hadn't moved my general enough, and she got a negative trait, which minused speed and like bonus the success chance for enemies, which was annoying. It wasn't something that was actually going to really hurt me at the moment, and hopefully I'd be able to get rid of it eventually as well, because, you know, having negative traits on characters is just more annoying than anything. I find it so annoying that it just sticks around. I just want it to leave. Okay, so I did basically nothing until turn 100. I had maxed out all my settlements. I had a really good army. I was decent friends with Tic Tac Toe, but I had made sure not to make any treaties at the moment. So yeah, I was doing pretty well, and I was ready to go over and have a look at all the other factions and the old world and just see what was going on over there. By turn 100, there were 91 factions in the world, and obviously one of them being me, so there were 90 other factions that were controlling all the settlements, which I thought were actually, it was a small amount of factions. I was expecting maybe 110 or something, maybe 120. So 90, obviously there were going to be some massive factions, and I was ready to fight them all. So guys, I hope this piqued your interest. In the next episode, we will be exploring the world and seeing what factions control stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little, like, basically this is just an intro into the campaign, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, my kin.